So hello everybody. Just need to mute my. There we go. Happy to be here again. Actually, it's been maybe a couple of weeks since we did our last one, and it went so well. Thank you for all the fantastic feedback and all the questions. Also, just to let you know that last week we had an amazing live training class. We call it a remote classroom. And it was such a great experience, like 50 or 60 people, joined together, and we learned everything. Well, not everything. There was a little bit something more to learn, but we learned quite a lot about color management. And as a part of that, we were diving a little bit deeper into look development. So I'm going to continue in our private group to continue, talking about looks and developing some looks. I think, already like this week I might post something, and then next week again. So you'll see a little bit more stuff coming. In the meantime, I just want to say hi to a few of you to see who has joined us. Let's have a look. Lucas from Buenos Aires, very good. Hi, Lucas. And somebody from Barcelona, Maria Lucia. Henrique from Brazil. Hello, Henrique. I hope you guys are doing well. I hear you kind of getting like this kind of tail of this virus happening at the moment. Jeremy from San Francisco, hello. And Nicholas is there. Drew from Salt Lake City, very good. And Luca from Italy, hello Luca. And then we have Andres from Spain and Tom from the UK. And Sanyin from Sarajevo. Wow, very good. We haven't had anybody from Bosnia. This is probably first one. Hello, Sanyin. Reka, hi, and this Kian. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, from Holland. And Peter is here. Hello, Peter. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi. And Nico. Oh, God. Nico has a great blog, everybody, with some fantastic information that is useful to you. Maybe, Nico, you can post in the chat a link to your website. I think, it's fantastic. Then we have someone from Portsmouth, and then, let's see, Frank is here, Aaron, Felipe, Cedric. Hello, Cedric. Yeah, Cedric is from New York or Switzerland. I'm never sure where he is. Igor is here. Hello, Igor. Very good to see you. Very good to see you here. And someone from Kenya. Wow, I love it. I love it, And Lajos. Oh my God, Lajos, I'm so happy to see you here. Hope you're doing well, Lajos, and your family. I'm so glad to hear back from you. Thank you so much for joining, Lajos. Very, very nice to hear from you. Then we have Mikael, and then Emiliano from Mexico, and then we have someone from India, and Jasper. Jasper, we were actually online just earlier this week. I think it was a Tuesday on that Red event. Good to see you, Jasper, again. I'll promise I'm gonna make that video how I made it look. So bear with me. I'll definitely do it. I just this week was a little bit hectic with a couple of things. Post-production is waking up, so we have a little bit more things going on at the moment. And then I have a Mauricio from Germany and someone from Brazil. Oh my God. And it keeps going. It keeps going. Very good. Guys, I love you all. Thank you so much for joining, and fantastic to see you here. Oh my God, the list is so long. I think I could spend another hour just going through it, but let's kind of now crack on to see what is going to be happening on this particular live training, and then I'll come back a little bit to the chat later on. At the beginning, I would like to quote Josh Pines. He's basically a person who is really responsible for ACE's workflow for these big movies that I have mentioned in my introduction. So all the Captain Marvels. And basically, and this is his quote, he says, ACEs can be used for good or it can be used for evil. It's a power. So basically, I think as I start a little bit explaining, how we do film synthesis, you guys are probably going to understand what Josh wanted to say with it. Also, I want to just use this opportunity to pass my regards to Alan Robert Hopkins, who was the DIT and a daily colorist on one of the jobs I have mentioned now. It's just slipped my mind which one it was, but he just contacted me and said, Dado, I'm not going to be able to go live. So I just want to, give him a shout. It's Alan. And, hopefully you're going to be able to catch up live recording later on. Basically, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things today. Number one, we're going to go through project settings, just if it's the first time that you are going to be doing this, it's just to kind of reaffirm how to do it. I also want to show you what will change. Actually, many things will change. I'm going to try to focus on that kind of amount of things that is most significant. And actually, I will also show you how I work to counterfight those changes. And then we're going to go and talk about the film look, because we're grading film, we want it to look filmic. So there are, certain tricks we have to do. I'm going to also show you a way to how we are able to create of that filmic look in ACES using parametric method. So there is a kind of method we're using at the moment, which is using a lookup table. And there is a one which we call a parametric, because there are just a simple parameters that we can adjust and change. And so we can tweak and adjust the look. The advantage is obvious because we're not going through any lookup table. We have a flexibility where we can change effectively our look. So it's actually probably workflow that we hope we're going to see more and more with the ACES 1.2. Yes, there is ACES 1.2. I'm not going to talk about it now. I want to make another event like this one where we're going to go a little bit deeper into it as it gets more adopted. And also I want to talk about how to set this settings for SDR master, for HDR master, for GAM and NAM. And for that, I am going to use actually a reference document that was created by Netflix, simply because I think we just want to kind of avoid confusion. I want to be 100% sure that what I will tell you is exactly how you should be working. So that is kind of a little intro. Let me just quickly, cast my eye on chatboard. And we have somebody also from Edward from Venice, so my neighbor. Hey, very good. And Vanessa from London. Very, very good. Okay, guys. So just without further ado, let me basically start with how to set up the project. And to cut the whole story short, what we are doing in color grading is we are using ACES CCT. And this is your color space you should be using. Don't get confused that maybe your effects company will be using ACES, that there are certain other forms of ACES like ACES CC. Just ignore everything. Your color space you should be grading, and it should be ACES CCT because it's going to behave the closest to what you are used to when you are grading log material. So basically, I'll start first with kind of how to set up the system, and then slowly I'll take you through all of these steps to what needs to happen. So the first thing you want to do is you want to click on Settings. And in Settings, there is a Color Management tab. And in there, you have to, normally like in Davinci, by default, it says Davinci YRGB, right? And then you want to click on that and you want to select ACES CCT, okay? And then the version you want to select is the version 1.1. Now, just so you know, there is no major difference between 1.03 and 1.1, apart that 1.1 has got a larger amount of IDTs, ODTs and stuff like that. So it's a kind of got a little bit more expanded library of those. Okay, so the next thing you want to then do is you want to say, what is your ACES input device transform? And I strongly recommend do not set anything here. Like leave this blank and set all the IDTs on actual clips. So basically don't really do it here. And then our output device transform is going to be 709. Even guys, if you're going to be like grading in HDR, I would always recommend start your project first with 709. Make sure you're getting, you know, things looking approximately where you want them to look, and then switch to HDR, simply because, you know, usually projects, you know, have been graded on dailies, or, you know, somehow the look was created on set in 709. So it's a good way for you just to establish that you're kind of reference that what that has happened. And that is pretty much it. The only thing that I would kind of, you know, say that is a common mistake that I have seen happen is that somehow this little setting called use broadcast save stays on. And that's a problem. So make sure that you don't have any broadcast save. It should be completely without it. And you're done. And what's really beautiful about it, you see, I have here some Ari 65 shots, Alexa 65. And basically, they straight away look as if you have like look applied to it. And this is primarily reason why colorists like ACES, because it just very quickly gives them an image, a look, a result. And, you know, and in comparison to Davinci color management that has a similar effect, this seems to be more a standard that basically if I was to set, you know, the settings in Davinci and I was to set it up in Baselight, in Nucoda, in Mystica, or, you know, using Live Grade by Pomfort on set, I'm always going to have exactly the same result. And that's not the case if you are working with Davinci color management, because that's a very specific for Davinci, and nobody else is going to be able to necessarily tap into that workflow that you were doing unless you're good in exporting LUTs and giving LUTs and so on. Okay, so this would be basically, you know, your first setting. Now, how do you set IDTs? What you have to do is this. Because these shots that I have imported, they are raw. They are basically ARRI raw. You don't have to set any IDT for those. And this is one of the kind of, you know, confusions that I normally get from people who say, oh, what's the IDT? No, raw material does not require any IDT because ACES is handling that. ACES is able to use the scene referred data from the raw capture and adapt it to its color space. You don't have to do anything to it. However, if you do have a material like some sort of ProRes or some RGB kind of files, or, you know, anything else that is not raw, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to basically, you know, click on those clips. And what's really interesting is that here, if you scroll a little bit, you know, you have an ability to sort things by format or by video codec, and that is going to group your different camera materials really nicely. And then all you have to do is you just have to say, okay, shift click all of these shots, right mouse click, and then you say ACES input transform and select it. In my case, this is Alexa, whatever your camera is. Now, the question is, what do I do if my camera does not have an IDT, or I'm using something like that? And the answer is try one different IDT and try one which is going to get you closest to where you want it to be. It's okay. It's okay. Just make sure nothing's clipping, nothing's going too crazy, you know, and see which one's coming close to where you want it to be. Okay? What happens if I'm bringing in archive footage, something that's already been graded to the Rec 709? In that case, what you want to do is you want to just select an 709 IDT. And basically, this is the one, Rec 709. And basically, when you stick that, then any material that is coming, you know, from, you know, archive or something like that is going to be adopted automatically. So, you know, you don't have to worry about it. So don't despair necessarily if you don't have an IDT. You know, it doesn't have to be like exactly from your camera. As I said, like, I remember I had some DJI footage and I was using, I forgot now, something like a Canon. I just kind of tried few kind of IDTs and I got one that looked like a closest to it. Now, I also can show you how you can make your own IDTs, but this is not part of this necessary workflow. There is a way how you can build your own IDTs for the cameras you're working with, and how you can get these transforms going. But this is really something that we do normally on bigger movies, on bigger projects, when there is really a need for us to kind of have a constant IDT working and so on. Because it takes a little bit of time, you have to have a camera, you have to shoot and so on, so it's not necessarily straightforward. You can just open a file and make an IDT based on that file. Okay. So now that I got everything sorted, let me just kind of start, get straight to the point and tell you what is the first thing that you will probably notice is going to behave differently. And this is basically how the controls behave inside an ACES project. Okay, let me first actually delete this so that you can see what I normally do, so you'll see what the problem is. And this is one of the main actually obstacles that many colorists don't want to work in ACES because of this problem. So have a look. I'm going to now change my lift and look at my curve here, what's happening with it. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see, as to what's happening, right? So look, if I basically now go and start changing my lift, see what's happening with it. Right? It doesn't look like a lift at all. It actually looks more like some sort of gamma, isn't it? Right? Okay, fine. Now look, if I change gamma, look what's happening. Everything's looking a little bit funny again. All right? Looks similar to lift, by the way. And then, I go and change the gain. Oh my God, again, it just looks like if I'm applying a gamma to it. So that kind of, linear, effect that, we're getting from lift, gamma, gain, and offset and stuff like this is just not happening, because it's ACES, it just works a little bit differently, right? And that puts off most people because they kind of, grab controls, they grab tables, lift, gamma, gain, and suddenly realize, oops, my system is not behaving exactly in the same way. You can still get to a very good look, don't get me wrong. It's just it kind of needs a little bit time for you to get adapted. So what I do to actually avoid this problem from happening is I do following. So I'm going to go and open another node. And then in your OFX library, you're going to find something called ACES transform. And I'm just going to put it ACES transform on my second node. And in that transform, I'm going to make following transformation, basically. Yeah. I'm going to say my input is going to be ACES CCT, okay? And my output, I'm going to make it to be 709, okay? All right. So now I have kind of converted this signal to be 709. Then I'm going to have a node, okay? So this is going to be my basically kind of in, all right? Then I have a node which is going to become my primary, okay? And then I'm going to make another node, all right? And this node I'm going to make my out, okay? And here I'm going to go back to ACES CCT. So I'm going to say, hey, take my 709 that I've been, originally in, and make it an ACES CCT project. So what's happening, you see, I'm back completely at square one. And you can do that in ACES. Actually, this is a kind of a great feature of ACES that if you do this, like, ACES CCT to 709 and back to ACES CCT, you're not losing anything. You are not really compressing it down to 709. You will remain and you will have a full gamut and dynamic range that you have from those files because Davinci is working in float and can do it, and the mathematics for ACES is capable of doing that. So don't worry, like just because I have converted something to 709, it doesn't mean I lost all that dynamic range. But what I gained is this. So if I click on this primary, and now I start changing my lift, this is going to be the behavior you guys are used to. And girls, yes. So basically you can now work with your primary as if it is basically, primary that you guys know, that you are used to be working with, that basically everything's going to behave back as normal. So this is a little workaround that I use to just start working a little bit more. That kind of system still behaves as I'm used to it, but I am still in ACES. Just like a little kind of tip and a little workaround. I have a few more of those, but I said I don't have time to show all of them. This is one which is the most important. There are a few other workarounds, like for some other things. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go and grab this still because I want to actually use this on my other shots. So let's go back to my timeline, right? And now in this timeline, I'm just gonna go to my gallery, right? And I'm gonna go and apply this grade. Another thing I want to also tell you, which is very important if you're working with raw material, and I can basically stress, this enough, this is just, one little thing that is so easy to forget, but it's going to really drive you crazy. And which is this, right mouse click into the media, into the gallery, and then scroll down, and then you'll see there is this little setting, which is called Copy Grade Preserves Camera Raw Settings. Okay, and it's very easy to forget this setting and not to switch it on. And why I'm saying this is because if I was now to take, for example, and this particular node tree, and I was to copy it to my basically clip like this, what would happen? It would also copy all of my raw settings, and actually they are not the same, because you see in this camera the ISO is 800, and in this camera the ISO is 400. And if I had just copied without that setting, it would just apply an 800 ISO, and everything would start looking out of whack. And this is especially important, for things like color temperature, tint, and all of the other kind of settings that are part of this whole raw pipeline. So as I said, and very easy to forget this little setting, but it can cause you tons of headaches when you start working with it. Okay, so now we have it kind of looking 709, but no feature film really is going to adopt this look. This 709 look really works for documentaries and for interviews and stuff like that, but films, they just need to look like film, really. And then as the problem is that basically lookup tables that we used in order to emulate film stock don't work in ACES. And the reason why they don't work is primarily because, well, it's lots of reasons, but they're just made for a different color space, So number one, the range of the LUT is not really correct. ACES has its own range, so the lookup tables have to be created for that particular range. So number two, the color space that ACES is working in is completely different. It's using this kind of AP1 primaries, and this is completely different than what we normally do with the primaries for the cameras when we're building these lookup tables. And number three, that kind of RRT curve, has its own some sort of characteristic, so it's very difficult for us, to work against it. So if we apply any a kind of curve, it just has to fight at RRT. So there is a real method to how we build these LUTs for ACES CCT, and it takes quite a bit of pre-processing and post-processing in order for us to be able to adapt existing color signs to it. So you can't really use them, just forget about it. So I want to now just basically tell you what I normally do to basically create this kind of filmic looks, and I'm going to show you three methods. Basically, I think, let me just check. I think I have even a little slide for that. So the method number one is basically, and I think it's the simplest method, is using a Collab plugin for ACES. And basically that plugin has got all of this, what I just explained, adapting, different color spaces, dynamic range, blah, blah, done for you. And you can just, use it, stick it, and you have the LUT. The next step is to use parametric print film emulation. I'm going to show you this is used in the form of DCTL. And there is a great color scientist and developer called Paul Dorr, who actually has done an amazing work by adapting a work that was already done by ACES and creating a DCTL version of that. So I'm going to show you that as well, and then I'm going to show you my approach that I just kind of started using recently to how to make a parametric PFE, and then we're going to be able to compare these results. Let's go and have a look at this now. So actually, one thing, by the way, that I do regularly, and don't get me wrong, I don't know if this is right or wrong, I just kind of like the effect of it, is I open always another node, and on that node I put a CLF, and CLF is a new LUT format that is being now just finalized as a way of basically being, and it's called common look format. So hopefully it's going to become common and adopted by everybody at one moment. But Davinci has like a little implementation of it, and it comes with something which is called neon suppression. And I think it's a great way. So look, if I click this neon suppression, you see what it does. So have a look at my skies here. So I basically do this. I'm just going to show you. So you see how kind of it just takes off some of that edge, from that very high saturated files, and straight away they feel a little bit better, and I kind of, love Alexa, but, Alexa just, sometimes just has this very, very saturated colors, especially grass. It just looks so strong. And this little kind of transform just helps with that, just kind of reduces, some of that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go and open another node, but I'll pull it here so that we can see better. And then I'm going to go to my plugins, and I have here ACES, Collab ACES. And I'll drop that here on top. And basically, now, because I'm using this all the time, you see I have already created this kind of similar effect called limit gamut. So I will disable this one that I just did earlier. And then I'll just basically use the one inside the Collab. So let me just disable this, and here I have a limit gamut, and it has a similar effect. You see, it also does kind of very similar thing. And then what I'm going to do now, I am just going to go and in comparison to normal Collab, where we have also contrast curves, here is no contrast curves. Basically, all we can do is we can select a palette, and then basically what you do is you say, okay, if this is, for example, Kodak 2383 palette, this is like I don't know, Kodak Vision 3 palette, right? Or I could go and say, okay, let me work with the Fuji stock, and I have some sort of Vivid 500, for example, or look at this one, 8553. So all of those film stocks that you're used to working with, they are all available here, and they're adapted to work in ACES. And I would say this is probably the easiest way to how you can kind of get into like a quickly, giving your projects that you grade in ACES that filmic feel and emulating that film stock. However, since we have to handle contrast, ourselves, what you do is you put a node in front of the Collab. And there what you do, you just kind of put, like I normally say, editable splines, and in my curves, I just kind of create a little S shape, for example, like this, and that straight away helps me to create, a great looking. So this is before and after. So it kind of gives me very quickly, that filmic feel. Let me go and actually copy this kind of look to these shots here. I love this one, actually. It's a kind of, an aerial from the basically New York or whatever. I think it's Manhattan. So check this one out, before and after. And this is just using basically, I think what I'm doing is just using like some Fuji film stock emulation. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch to a slightly different type of shots with some skin tone so that we can actually see a little bit better what's happening. So what I got here is just some ARRI footage, and in here what I did is I have just applied a Kodak 2383 profile from Collab, and I have then just got that to look like this. So basically, look, so this is what it looked like as a 709. This is kind of normal situation, by the way, that things look a little bit overexposed when you bring up ProRes in because of the IDTs that are supplied with it. So you have to use some offset, just to bring it down a little bit. So you see, I have just brought with my printer lights with offset, I brought everything a little bit down, and then I have applied Collab to it. By the way, Collab allows you as well to export this LUT. So that you can just, if you don't want to use plugin, you can just continue working just with the LUT. And that works, by the way, as well, without any problem. Okay, now I want to show you a next way, which is called, the parametric way. And so for that, I'm just going to go and, I have already prepared here a next version. Okay, so what this version is doing, and basically there is a website called acescentral.com, and on that website there is a 4-part blog and tutorial exactly about this subject, and I can highly recommend, if you're interested in a little bit this color science, please go there and read. By the way, this whole ACES Central is a great community kind of space, and it's fantastic for, sharing knowledge, and don't be like threatened, because there are some people there asking some very complicated questions that are involving like some sort of transfer, blah blah. But you know what? Everybody's welcome there. You can just come in and ask even the most stupid question, and somebody there is going to help you with it in quickest way. And also, there are some great articles there, and one of them is this one, which is basically using parametric way of achieving film stock emulation. So that has been then translated, as I mentioned earlier, by Paul Dorr as a DCTL. You can find also on that forum a link to where you can download this DCTL. So what you do, you just basically go and you apply. I can just do it again so you guys see basically how I did it. So you open a DCTL OFX plugin, you drop it onto your node, and then from the list of your DCTLs, and you just load DCTLs like any lookup tables, you basically load this one, which is called lmtpfe.ofx, and basically there you go, I have this effect. Now I personally find it a little bit more aggressive, so what I do is I'm just gonna go and reduce the contrast down a little bit, so just kind of it doesn't really pop as much, and I think roughly this is bringing me to kind of that kind of interesting print film look and feel, so that is the second approach. By the way, there is a whole range of parameters that you can use here, and you're more than welcome to start playing with them and figuring out how to come and how to improve these things. I can encourage you to do that. So there is a perfectly one thing here we have is exposure. So that same thing I did earlier with my offset, you can achieve the same effect here with exposure. You have ability to scale color, and this is scaling color is just basically a different way to explain as to how you are reducing the color gamut. Then you have a standard slope, offset, and power, which is equivalent of gain, gamma, and offset. So basically the only thing we're missing is lift. And then what you have here is then you have basically saturation and contrast. And then this is an interesting approach. What we have here is, let me show you, is basically a certain kind of hue that we can pick on. And that hue, then we can decide how wide this range of that hue is going to be. And then we can then rotate that hue. So we can basically apply a color kind of angle, or when it says rotate, it thinks about like a hue, and you just kind of change the angle of that hue a little bit. So it's a kind of like a little bit, like think of it like a secondary, but parametric secondary, but it does the job. It's kind of really, really good way of how to tweak some of these ranges that we normally have in film that are not, like reproduced in the same way as Sena 9, and it just tweaks them a little bit like that. So this is one approach. I want to show you one approach that I am doing at the moment, and basically this is kind of a little bit more evolved from this first approach. One thing that I always have a problem with, this kind of just parametric, approach is actual contrast of the file. And let me show you what I mean by that, so that you can see basically. What I'll do now is I'm just going to desaturate the output. So just look at it a little bit just in a black and white. So the problem, that we have with this parametric approach is that we are still kind of dealing with a relatively neutral contrast curve. Yet, film and the magic of film is greatly to do with the way how film responds to light and that particular contrast curve. So what I did is basically I have built, a following node tree. So on this first node here, okay, what I did is I have applied the CLF with the neon suppression, okay? So what I did here is I have just basically created and said, okay, I'm just going to apply a neon suppression, and then what I did is I have reduced a little bit, I believe, like I just brought down a little bit the shadows with a lift, okay? Then what I did is I have built a curve which is emulating as to what is happening with film stock emulation and how the contrast is working. And what is really important to note is that this curve is a 1D LUT. So it's called Kodak 2383 contrast in ACES. So basically, look what it does. So it actually, creates that it's the roll-off curve, effectively, you could call it like that. What it does, it just kind of goes from this, like a, let me actually just delete this node so that we can see better here. All right. So what it does is this, let's see. So it just kind of takes your standard ACES response and applies this beautiful filmic roll-off to it. So you see it kind of, and the first thing you're going to notice the change is on the skin tone, like skin just, gets this beautiful soft roll-off. And already now I feel like, okay, I'm very close to where I really want to be. I need this, 1D LUT, which is, by the way, much more precise than a 3D LUT, because 1D LUT has got the 16-bit precision, so you're really not losing any detail with it. It's a very well, adapted by image. Image doesn't really break if the 1D LUT is being designed correctly. And then what I do here is I have a set of DCTL parameters again. And for that, I'm using a different DCTL, which is also developed by Paul Dorr. And this one is called Color Balance. And in there, what I do is I basically tweak the hues in a similar fashion like we have seen previously. But for example, here what I do is I apply a little cyan into my shadow. Here what I do is I take some green out of the midtone, and here what I do is add a little bit yellow to the highlight. So basically, I kind of, create like a 3 parameters, that help me do that. And I want to show you how they compare. So let's say this is basically side-by-side split screen of, this is Collab lookup table. Basically, this is the, using Collab plugin. This is using the DCTL for print film emulation, and this is using, my approach with the 1D LUT and selective hue range adjustment. And this is why I really like this new approach that I just developed, because it just gives me the best result. I find it, and like I can kind of, I like this, but I find that, you see the highlight on the skin. I know it's a Zoom and YouTube, whatever we would, you could, so you guys won't be able to see as much detail, but trust me, like basically this skin tone here is just, has too much highlight peak, and where about here I'm back to that beautiful, soft roll off on the highlight. And also you see how my color palette is just really nicely matching the film palette, and I was able to get the skin to work. But here about skin is still a little harsh. You would probably have to work more with secondaries after that, where about here I've just got everything working without any secondary. I am actually gonna, create like another tutorial and a course that is going to teach exactly how I build this. And I think it's a fantastic creative tool for you guys to start, like building your own print film emulations completely parametrically, because this is the transition I can foresee we will be doing with ACEs, that we will be less and less be relying on LUTs, because, with the new CLF format, we are going to be able to save, these parameters and be able to actually, use them further and be able to tweak them further. And then all I do after that is then I just basically select these and I just say, we create a compound node, and that then becomes my, like a show LUT that I can then continue using further down in production. And that is kind of the three kind of possible ways of how you want to try to emulate film. And let me just go and try to apply this look on one of the other shots, and you see it just looks so good, And the beauty of this is that you get all the fidelity that you want to get from ACEs, but you finally kill some of those kind of crazy colors that you can get with it. And also it helps a little bit with that strong contrast that RRTs got. So, I kind of, at the moment we just have to work with what ACEs does, and we have to make it good, not evil, basically, as Josh Pines has explained at the beginning. And I think you're probably trying to grasp this idea. It's a great tool, it's very fast, but it also locks you in a particular look, and you need to find your way out of it. How you're going to actually achieve and preserve the creative intent and not be driven by what ACES is actually telling you, or it's kind of driving you towards. You are getting control back in with this parametric way of controlling your look. Okay, one more important thing I have to show you is following, and basically, it's very important, like a subject, since I could imagine that many of us will be working now for, streaming channels. They are, going to produce a ton of new material the moment we start shooting, and the post is going to get really busy with that. So the likelihood is that you guys are really going to be working on shows for Netflix, for example. And I wanted to really show you what to do if you are working on Netflix shows. What are the right settings? Now, Netflix, in their own fantastic way of being a company that is very open source, is sharing this. So there is actually a document, in their production support hub that explain this. But let me actually show you a little bit, here what you need to do. So this particular setting that I have used so far is exactly the setting that you would want to use for Netflix shows that are delivering just SDR. If you want to do HDR, you need to use this setting, and it's called P3 D65 ST2084 1000 nits. So just try to remember this one. So so Netflix again is very specific. They do want you to work in P3. They don't do Rec 2020 at the moment. So I have also made an adjustment from my previous training, making sure that you are using native P3, not the P3 in Rec 2020. But in any case, this is the correct setting. And this is now, interestingly, going to give you just with one click, perfect transformation. Well, perfect, good transformation into your HDR. And basically, so your SDR grade is suddenly going to adapt itself to HDR, and with a little trim, you're going to be able to get it to work very, very quickly. However, Netflix deliveries have got two other formats that sometimes, cause like a little kind of friction, or people think like, what is this? But they are fantastic actually archiving formats that I would do even if I wouldn't be finishing for Netflix, So they're called NAM and GAM. And basically, NAM stands for non-graded archival master, and GAM for graded archival master. So let me first show you how to do a GAM. So if you're going to do a GAM, all you have to do is you click on this and you go scroll up and you say no output transform. And what happens now, I know that your image is going to look super crazy, but actually what happens is that you are now outputting in the linear ACES 16-bit space, and that is going to preserve all of that detail that you can then reopen that file and be able to repurpose it for any display. So this is like a scene referred archive with color grading embedded into it, and it's a kind of fantastic way. And look guys, all you have to do, flick one button, bang, and you press render and you go. The second format is basically this format, and it's called non-graded archival master, and it's pretty simple to achieve. What you have to do, you have to go back to your render, and then what you want to do, you want to scroll down all the way to the bottom, and then in advanced settings there is a thing which says here, enable flat pass. All right, you want to go and select always on, right? And when you do that, you're going to be able to get exactly that kind of no grade applied to it, and yet all the material saved in the negative space, so that later somebody could be able to open that master and grade it, regrade it completely and have all of that material in, so that all the cameras have been adapted into a unique format, into the same format, and actually works really, really well. I don't know if this non-graded is going to be used that much, but I can tell you that GAM is an absolute, gift, because there's going to be so many situations where you want to reopen your master and be able to repurpose it for maybe IMAX screen, or maybe Dolby Vision cinema, or whatever else, and you just have a master with a dynamic range. I have showed you in my last live training how you can do that same thing using Davinci color managed approach. This is what you can do exactly the same using ACES. And at the end of the day, one of the first reasons why we wanted to do ACES was to have a great archiving format that anybody can read and doesn't need any LUTs or anything like that. And there we go. We're basically really, really close to achieving that with this one. So this would be roughly what I had prepared in terms of the subjects I wanted to talk about in this live training today. I'm now happy to go back to chat and open some of this discussion. While I'm basically on that subject, I also wanted to let you know about a very important information that maybe is interesting to you guys. We have started doing our what we call a remote classroom. So basically the way how it works is that we work 4 days in a row, 2 hours each day, and we tackle subjects that are really important for professional colorists. If you guys are considering, I want to really work in this environment, I want to work professionally in this, then this is really training for you. It's not about hey, cool tips how to make stuff. It's about really how this industry works and what you need to know and how to a little bit update your knowledge. What is really good about this kind of 4 days live is that we work very intensely. Then you have to do a little assignment, and then we also have a little private group where we can chat and discuss. And it was just unbelievable. I have really enjoyed it. I was a little bit skeptical about it because I like to have a classroom, sit in front of the audience. We have a small group of 10 people maximum, and then we have a great working environment. where about, when I'm kind of learning by myself, I usually find myself a little bit struggling with that to self-motivate myself. But when I'm in a group, I learn much better. So this is a kind of an in-between, where you're like live on a conference call and you can ask questions and discuss things, yet, you're still like basically at your home. And this class is going to start in June, and if you go to our Collab.training website, you are going to be able to register for that. And at the moment what we're doing is I think this class is like $200 cheaper than normally, and we're going to be running this special offer for as long as we are in this lockdown, and when the things start opening, then we will kind of go back to our normal ways of doing things. But right now we want to help you all, and we have slashed down these prices heavily. Also, I have maybe announced this last time. Just wanted to let you know that we did start with the micro degrees, which is basically continuation of our fundamentals course. And the first micro degree is out or was out yesterday, and it's called Daily Colorist. And I will probably talk a little bit more about it next time. But I created just a short course that will gonna give you update to how Daily Colorist has to work today. It's like basically, okay, you're gonna get a job to grade dailies, and by the way, dailies will be graded remotely. We're already setting up several productions, and we are not gonna be doing it on set. So the chances are that you will be getting asked to do dailies. And if you want to get an update, hey, how should I do dailies if I'm working today, if I'm working for Netflix, Amazon, HBO, what's the workflow? We put together in a very short course, like bam 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 facts, and videos that you can also like get access to constantly. You don't have to subscribe to, you just basically get the videos and you have them, and you can reference exactly all of that workflow. Now let me go and see a little bit how questions are going. I'm gonna go a little bit from behind and say like, thanks Nicholas, so not ACCG, sorry, so yes. So I can see Nicholas has been helping, that's very nice. Okay, so thank you, Nicholas, for explaining this. Why we're not doing the ODT. That's very good. So basically, we don't do ODT because we want to preserve all of the dynamic range and stay in a scene referred. ODT means we have to stick it in a display space, and that's not really what we want to do. Elliot is asking, would you put all the grading for the shot between the in and out nodes, or would you just accept the funky controls after you set the exposure and primer? No, I wouldn't necessarily put everything in between. I only tend to use my primary like that, Elliot. So I try to put only my primary because I like my primary to behave normally. And then everything else, like, all the windows, secondaries, curves, I leave in aces. Actually, they behave slightly differently, but I can handle that. I can handle it. In some ways, they behave sometimes a little bit better. So that doesn't really give me the headache. All I want is just to do this one. But if there is a situation, there are several other situations where you want to do the same thing, like maybe the layers and stuff like this, where you really want to do that. The GAM and NUM, it's not NGAM, the GAM and NUM, if they are exported at grade stage, what happens to any work done in the online? Well, look, you actually can open your GAM and put and continue online, because what you do is you bring as long as your online system can handle ACES files, what you would do is you would just put in right ODT and you would be fine. Everything will be actually working, so you could continue working. NAM is not really used for online. NAM is just a kind of archive. What we used to do back in the day with film, we would preserve film negative. This is exactly what it is. It's just a film negative. Can we grade HDR on SDR monitor? Unfortunately, we can't. This is the only thing you need to buy. Ricardo, thank you. If you don't use the ACES transfer, which is the best way to use the controls, offset and contrast and pivot? Well, basically, offset is going to work like offset. you know, it's closest to, you know, kind of what probably, you know, you won't notice a huge difference with that apart from those kind of little kind of, you know, shifts. It behaves slightly differently, but yes, you can use it with printer lights. And contrast and pivot work in a similar way. I know that some people also do is they go into preferences and they switch off that S-shaped contrast curve, and they believe that with that they get a little bit better response. I have a little doubts about it, but you know, certainly you can try to do that. That could help you a little bit with the contrast controls. Joe works, is there a way to change a default ODT output transform that resolve applies to the ACES CCT? Yes, there is. So what you do is you basically don't apply any ODT, you leave the one that you have, and then you can then put your own ODT. But this is very rare situation that you do it, you know, because there is so many different versions of ODTs that you really, really rarely do this. Now look, you can do a lot with ACES, but it's pain. And I think I would probably have to bring you someone like Josh Pines to tell you a little bit to what really happens on those movies that decide to modify ACES in order to get to that creative result that they really want. So all these Captain Marvels, they had the custom ACES profiles throughout. And it's not a trivial task, let me put it that way. Luca, working with the R3D raw files in ACES, what to consider in setting? Luca, it's exactly the same. You know, ACES is gonna handle your raw files. The only thing that you probably would want to do is you wanna check that, you know, you can maybe tweak a little bit your raw settings or something like that. But apart from that, everything is gonna work exactly like expected. You won't see any problems with that. So, you know, feel free to do it, and feel free to stick with the IPP2. You have a choice to change that, but please stick with the IPP2. It's super important to do that. Then say, Olgar, why you don't use log wheels? I hate log wheels. I really don't think they're done well in this software. You know, this is like there are some, you know, like if you guys compare, for example, how base grade is working, or how like a, you know, similar effect is working in you know, Luster, for example. I know that not many people use it, but that was kind of one system that I loved, the way how this kind of, you know, log grade works. Also, Mystica has got a similar log type, you know, wheels. You will understand that this is just not, you know, doing a very good job, and it breaks image very quickly. And I start noticing very quickly noise in it, and I don't want that. You know, I want to improve image quality with my grading, not degrade image quality with my grading. So I just stay away from tools that are dangerous in a way that they can very quickly cause my image to break. Colin, ACES versus Alexa wide gamut, which one do you use most for your HDR delivery? I use Alexa wide gamut more. I have to put my hand on heart and say that I do get better results with Alexa wide gamut. Now, again, I'm a colorist. I don't care. You know, I'll work in ACES, Alexa, whatever. You know, I'm super easy with that. I don't mind. You know, I'm not married to any one of those, so I can totally work with whatever works best for me. So don't despair if you don't get results, you know, with one. You know, you can always switch to another in any case. But personally, I get better things. I just feel like I'm more comfortable working with Alexa wide gamut. Okay, one second, Colin. Diego, hi Dado, the DCTL happens in the CCT part of ACES or between the CCT and RRT? Well, Diego, everything is then CCT, and the DCTL is in CCT, and it happens before the RRT. You're right, it happens before the RRT. So basically, you go from CCT to CCT. That's really what its DCTL is doing. In ACES, can we use Lab? No, we can't. What if Netflix demands Dolby Vision HDR? Well, actually, before you start doing Dolby Vision, and they demand Dolby Vision, let's face it, you know, you have to do grading first. So what you do is you have to go and grade your HDR master first, using this method, and then go through Dolby Vision, metadata, trimming, and everything else. So normally what we do is we kind of grade it as if this is just a HDR project, and then only on the last day or for a half a day, we do a trim pass and metadata pass. That's the only difference. So I will have, by the way, a micro degree on that as well, so you can really learn how to really, love Dolby Vision and not really have any problems with that. Tarek, where do you place your final show LUT compound node in your node tree? Well, the beauty is this, Tarek, because we are working in scene referred color space, I place it straight away at the beginning. And doesn't matter, basically, because it doesn't have to sit at the end like it is in the other workflows. It can sit anywhere because it does scene referred to scene referred. So there is no point in putting it at the end, or, I put it usually as at the beginning somewhere, second node, and it's absolutely fine like that. Lajos, the highlight saturation problem, I use Academy Fix Highlight CTL, applying on the file level. Also, gamut limiter on node level. Okay, so, but sometimes doesn't work the way I like. So if you have a special treatment, I have actually, Lajos. The problem with that Academy Fix Highlight is that it's fixed, right? It's kind of, you apply it and it just fixes it. And basically that's the problem. Now, in terms of the gamut, so there is a new work group created at the Academy that is going to look into this gamut issue, and we have some great people there. I actually, don't ever even want to get involved in it because some of these guys are just absolutely amazing. And they will try to find a way how to do it. But Lajos, let me just show you what I do if I have an issue. I go this, look, I come to I open a node, I go to tab number 2, and here you have this highlight, and check this out. And basically with that, you can just pull beautifully just the highlight down, and I really, really love this. This is normally my way of kind of, controlling, this kind of peaky highlight, especially an HDR project. And I don't think there is anything better than this. Actually, there is nothing better for highlight in any other tool out there than this. I have to say that this is the quickest and best way how to fix the highlights. Let's go back. So, Lajos, that's good. I have to see what happened because you're scrolling. There's so many questions now, guys. Wait. I'm just I have to catch up with you. Should I set up anything in camera setting for ACES? Not too sure. Leave camera alone. By the way, we have some great LUTs, and you can download them from ACES. For in camera if you want to use standard just ACES transforms. But I think we're gonna do like a class on grading on set. And you're going to see how we can do this in much nicer fashion, than just applying a baked-in LUT. Sean asked me, would you ever use ACES by choice as a colorist, even if production didn't establish it workflow? Yes, I would. Sean, I know that ACES look, and if somebody comes with the right project, and I know that I can just switch it to ACES and get it looking instant, that's the production for it. And you know what? I did many ACES grades that I didn't even tell clients I'm working in ACES. Because, there's a little fear, like you say, oh, we're working in ACES, they're like, they're a little bit worried, No, listen, you just switch it on and you work and you grade. And they love the image. Who cares if it's ACES or not ACES? Just relax about it and just do it. That's the way how I do it. Workflow for handling off-color to VFX in ACES. Aaron, it's exactly the same way how I did the GAM. So exactly like that, you just basically switch off the output transform, you render that as EXR files, and you send it to Visual Effects. Where can you find information on how to build custom IDTs? For example, missing S-Look 2 with this Gamma 3 using already existing ACES data. Joaquin, I think you gave me just a great idea for maybe another little workshop I'm going to do and show you how to do that. If you can't find it anywhere, maybe it's a good idea for us to do it. So I'll write myself down And maybe, next time I'm going to talk about making IDTs. I have to see how many people are really interested in that. Does the ACES workflow affect how a DP captures the image? Absolutely not. Mike, nothing changes for the DP. Absolutely nothing. This is just simply the way how we're going to, get the post to work a little bit better. Red Eye Pictures. Stefan here from Germany. Hello, Stefan. I'd like to get a bit more in depth into how you would deal with LUT when using ACES. What if they need a LUT of the look done in ACES for a Shogun monitor? Stefan, I understand. So you basically want to work in ACES, but you want to bake a LUT that you can just load into a device. This is probably, I'm definitely going to do a class on that. So keep an eye. And I'm going to definitely put it how to build LUTs in ACES that are baking in the whole ACES pipeline, including the creative part. Because if you were to do it now, it wouldn't work in Davinci, but there is actually a way how to do it. So, Stefan, I'm going to do a tutorial on that. That's a very good question. It takes a good half an hour to explain it, so I don't think I can do it right now. Nicolas Ramos, is it worth working in S-Log3, for example, with ACES? Yeah, totally. Nicolas, you have to be in S-Log3 if you want to get a good image in ACES, so you should use it as a rule. And then basically, Craig, I noticed when I quickly experimented with ACES, it seems soft and organic and produces the image. I like it. Can you describe the creative feel of grading in ACES from your experience? Craig, I actually, I find that I get a little more room to play, Image is just so much more responsive and it breaks less. I can push it and I don't see anything going wrong with that image. And that especially with cameras that don't have a very good logarithmic. So sometimes I use ACES, like if somebody brings me some Canon footage or some, Blackmagic footage or something like that, I go like, I know that I can go that little extra with ACES and I really like it. Now, whether it's organic, I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as organic. For me, organic is usually something that feels a little analog and stuff like that. So it's not 100% organic way of doing it, but I would say it does have a softer feel. When I'm moving dials, I just feel like I have a little bit more room and more control. Then I have Rahat. What about S-Log3 since it doesn't have those camera metadata in it? Is it necessary to still consider working in ACES? No, you can work in S-Log3, no problem, Rahat. I don't know if I understood the question correctly, but I think. Okay, Naveen, you should go and get the class and learn a little bit about the stuff. So, Sanjay, do you think when ACES 1.2 gets implemented to Davinci, when they make the wheels behave? Okay, I don't know when the wheels will behave, but I hope that it's going to get implemented soon. It's already implemented in ColorFront in a software called Rain, and it's implemented in Pomfort Live Grade. So they are. Did I say ColorFront as well? So I would imagine it's going to not take very long before we see it in Davinci. Davinci is fantastic in making these things done quickly. Is there any loss working with Davinci YRGB using Collab HDR when working directly with ACES? Not loss at all. In opposite. Tom, what do you think about using ACES inside Davinci YRGB color space? I actually have tried to do this a few times, and I don't know whether this is really right way of doing it, to be honest with you. But quickly switching to YRGB, like I showed you, it's more kind of a way how I would do it. In the parametric method for the low, mid, and high DCTLs, do you have a preserve luma checked? No, I don't. I don't use preserve luma. Grading on set classes would be awesome. Okay, we'll do that. You have now at the moment Daily Colorist, which is as close to set as you can get. Will you make another remote class color grading feature films in the future? Because 1 to 4 June I can't. I will probably, I think I will. You have to ask Ivana, our producer. She decides on that schedule and depending on my availability when things are going to be happening. But at the moment I can only do one class a month or so I have other, commitments. But I hope to, definitely maybe do another one in the future. Okay, very good. Guys, I think I'm just looking at time. We ran out a little bit our slot, so I'm sure you have lots of more questions coming. But by all means, use our Facebook page, color training on Facebook, and I'm super happy to, help you there. We're gonna be back soon. I hope already next week. We will announce probably at the beginning of the week if I'm gonna do one more like this one. Thank you for showing up. I think it is great to see you all here. This is the reason why we do it, why we love it. I think next time I'm just gonna go and put a little bit more time for you to question and for us to be able to chat and answer all of those things. I want to say one last hi to my friend Stuart, and so happy to basically see you here. Stuart, let me see what your message is because it's rolling over quickly. On playback, I have a Stuart. Email me directly with any of that and I'll help you. I have versions maybe that can, help you the same stuff. You have to have a 1.5 for any Mac computer because of the metal adaptation. So just make sure you have contacted me so that I can send you 1.5 that you can download that. Grazie mille from Italy, from Luca. Hey, Jasper. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of this. And, guys, stay safe, and stay happy. So happy to see you here, that this community is thriving. And, let me know if there is anything, you want to see in particular. I'll check out, this chat a little bit later on. And I can't wait to be live again soon. Hopefully, we're going to be doing it next week. And in the meantime, have fun and see you soon.